My name is Clarisse Mae Alonzo. I'm 17 years old. I live in Pasig City just outside of Manila, and I died. Not figuratively, not spiritually. I actually died for 23 minutes. I know how that sounds, a teenager saying she met Jesus, claiming she saw visions of the future of technology, of heaven and hell. If I were you, I wouldn't believe me either. But please, don't scroll away, don't laugh this off, and whatever you do, don't ignore this. Because what I saw, it's already happening. Maybe not on the news, maybe not on your feed, but deep down, you feel it too, don't you? That strange heaviness in the world, that pressure in the air, like something is coming, something no one is ready for. But before I tell you what I saw, I have to tell you how it all started. The 6th of December, 2024, a Friday. It was raining hard across Manila, the kind of rain that turns the sky to metal and makes the whole city feel tired. I was alone at home. My mom, a nurse, was pulling her second night shift at the hospital. She left me a rose caldo in the fridge and a quick message, "Don't sleep too late, Anik. I'll be home before sunrise." I didn't reply. I was already setting up my ring light. My phone was propped on the windowsill. I was live streaming another TikTok, another dance, another smile for strangers who didn't really know me. I was tired, but I kept smiling, kept performing. Someone commented, "Clarisse, you look exhausted." I laughed. I said, "Girl, I'm always tired." And that wasn't a joke. I hadn't really slept in 3 days. School stress, social pressure, that constant aching fear of being left behind, forgotten in the algorithm. But then, it happened. A sudden tightening in my chest, like invisible fingers squeezing my lungs from the inside. I gasped. My vision blurred, and before I could understand what was happening, I dropped my phone. I collapsed onto the floor, and everything, the music, the comments, the lights, just disappeared. No pain, no air, no time, just silence, and then something else. A pull, not physical but spiritual. I was floating outside of myself, looking down at my own body, lying still, unmoving, eyes wide open, but lifeless. My phone was still recording. The live stream was still running. Comments were flooding in. "Clarisse, is this real? Somebody call 911, but they couldn't reach me. I was already gone." And yet, I wasn't in the dark. I wasn't in peace either. I was being pulled hard like a thread unraveling from the fabric of reality. I wasn't going gently. It was fast, violent, urgent. I didn't understand where I was, but something inside me knew. I was being summoned, not by death, but by something far more powerful. The fear I felt was unlike anything I'd known, but so was the wonder. It was terrifying and beautiful, cold and holy. Then, just before the pull consumed everything, I saw one last thing. My reflection. My face frozen on the phone screen, eyes empty, body still. That's when I knew. I wasn't dreaming. I wasn't unconscious. I was dead. And yet somehow, more alive than I'd ever been. That moment changed everything, because death wasn't the end. It was the doorway. And what waited on the other side was not silence, not oblivion, but revelation. A truth so overwhelming, so beyond this world, that I would never see life or this generation the same way again. Something is coming. It hides in beauty. It wears light, but it leads to ruin. And if we don't wake up, we won't just lose our freedom, we'll lose our very souls. I thought death would be silence, or darkness, or nothing. But it wasn't. It was motion, fast, unrelenting, like falling through the fabric of space itself. I wasn't walking. I wasn't flying. I was being pulled, as if some invisible thread had hooked my soul and was dragging me through a tunnel I couldn't see but somehow felt. The air, if you could call it air, was charged, alive. It vibrated with something ancient, something eternal. And though I couldn't see my body, I could feel everything. The terror of not knowing where I was going. The awe of knowing this was real. The small, aching hope that maybe, just maybe, there was something or someone waiting at the end. And then, I stopped. Not gently, but instantly. The motion vanished, and for the first time since collapsing, I stood still. Not on ground, but in light. A light that didn't shine from above or below, it came from everywhere. It wasn't blinding, yet it pierced through me. It didn't hurt, but it exposed everything. My fears, my secrets, my guilt, my shame. And still, I wasn't afraid, because I wasn't alone. He was there. I didn't see him walk in. I didn't hear him approach. He was simply there, standing in the center of the light. Not glowing, not floating, not shouting, just present. And that presence filled the entire place with something I'd never felt before: peace. That didn't come from silence, but from love. Fierce, holy, unshakable love. And then he said my name.
Clarisse.
That was it. Just my name. But it shattered me, because no one had ever said my name like that before. Not my parents, not my teachers, not even me. It wasn't just a name, it was a calling, a knowing, a recognition of every part of me, even the parts I hated. And yet it was spoken with such compassion, such depth, such eternity, that I broke into tears. But even my tears felt holy. I couldn't speak, I couldn't move. I could only cry, and he didn't rush me. He didn't scold me. He just stood there, like a shelter in the storm. The light around him pulsed like a heartbeat, warm, alive, protective. It wasn't sunlight. It wasn't electric. It was something more real than anything I'd ever felt on earth. I was standing in the center of love itself.
You are not here by accident. You have questions. And I have answers.
I wanted to ask everything. Why me? Why now? Was I dead? Was this heaven? Was this judgment? But before I could form a single word, he lifted his hand, and the space around us began to change. The light folded away like curtains being drawn back, and suddenly, we were standing above what looked like an ocean, but it wasn't water. It shimmered, flowed, moved like a sea, but it was made of something else: data, code, energy. I could see colors I didn't know existed, lines of light flowing in and out, wrapping around each other like threads in a tapestry too complex to understand.
This is the world as it was meant to be. Pure, alive, designed with freedom, love, and purpose.
I stared, overwhelmed. It was beautiful. It was everything Earth had forgotten: truth, harmony, connection. But then, the light flickered, just for a moment, and when it did, I saw it. A shadow. It slithered through the streams. It didn't move like a creature. It moved like a virus, corrupting, twisting, mutating what was pure into something artificial, controlled, cold. And as it passed through the glowing currents, I saw its impact: flashes of people smiling into cameras, chips pressed to their heads, hands raised to invisible gods made of light. But their eyes were hollow, their souls dim.
They welcomed it, Clarisse, because it promised control, convenience, connection. But what it took was deeper.
I saw children, no longer playing but staring into empty holograms. I saw lovers holding hands while looking at different screens. I saw churches with stages instead of altars, shows instead of prayers. I saw humanity, upgraded but disconnected. And then, he looked into me.
Even you have longed for their world. The likes, the attention, the illusion of being seen.
He wasn't angry, he wasn't blaming me. But I felt it: the sorrow in his voice, the ache in his heart, not just for me, but for all of us. I fell to my knees. The weight of it was too much. I felt shame, but also peace. I felt conviction, but also comfort.
This is why I brought you here. Not to punish you, but to wake you up and to send you back.
As soon as I touched his hand, everything shifted again. The radiant warmth that once surrounded us vanished, not gradually, but like a flame being snuffed out in a storm. The peace evaporated, and in its place came a chill, not like wind or cold weather, but the kind of cold that sinks into your bones, into your soul. The kind that whispers, "You don't belong here." We were no longer standing above streams of living light. Now we were on the edge of a city. But it wasn't like any city I had ever seen. No trees, no birds, no colors, just sterile metal and silence. The sky was a dull gray, heavy and endless. The buildings were tall, impossibly tall, made of black glass and glowing wires that pulsed like veins. It was as if the world had been stripped of life and repainted by machines. People moved through the streets below, quiet, orderly. Their clothes were sleek metallic uniform, their eyes open but vacant, staring straight ahead like sleepwalkers. Screens hovered in the air, displaying shifting patterns, instructions, soothing phrases: relax, connect, obey. I watched a man walk by with a device embedded in his forehead, a blinking light above his temple. His expression never changed. He didn't smile, he didn't frown, he simply existed. I turned to Jesus, heart pounding. "What is this place?" I whispered.
This is not hell, as the world imagines it, but it is a hell made for souls. A prison not of chains, but of comfort.
And then I saw it. A tower, massive, shaped like a spiral, glowing with digital fire. Its walls were covered in symbols, a mix of ancient geometry and futuristic coding. It rose higher than any skyscraper I'd seen, piercing into the clouds. At its base, a line of people, thousands of them, waiting, smiling. Some were crying, others laughing. All of them eager. The sign above the entrance read "The Fusion." Become your highest self. Each person stepped forward. A small device scanned their face. There was a flash of light, and then they walked through the door, but they didn't come out the same. When they returned, their posture was different, their smiles frozen, their eyes dull like glass, their spirits gone.
They believe they've been awakened, but what they've become is disconnected. They traded the voice of their soul for the silence of submission.
He pointed toward a group of children gathered in a glass room. They weren't playing. They weren't talking. They sat in rows, each wearing a sleek headset. Their eyes flickered with artificial light as data poured directly into their minds. "Download complete," a screen announced above them. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run in and tear the devices off. But I couldn't move. I could only watch. We entered a building. From the outside, it looked like a church. A glowing cross still hung above the door. But inside, it was hollow. People sat in chairs wearing virtual helmets. A smooth, robotic voice preached from a glowing pulpit, "Salvation is evolution. Sin is inefficiency. Truth is relative." There were no Bibles, no prayer, no repentance, only algorithms, only performance.
They kept the structure, but removed the spirit. This is the new religion, tailored, sanitized, sterile, and utterly empty.
I felt my knees begin to buckle. Tears burned in my eyes. "Why are they doing this?" I cried. "Why are they choosing this?"
Because it feels good. Because it removes the burden of truth. Because it promises control without conviction. He led me through the city, past digital shrines, robotic counselors, silent hospitals, filled with people on life support, not of their bodies, but their spirits. And then he said something that shattered me.
He led me through the city, past digital shrines, robotic counselors, silent hospitals, filled with people on life support, not of their bodies, but their spirits. And then he said something that shattered me.
This world is being shaped, not just by code, but by the lie that began in Eden. You can be like God.
The scene changed again. We were in a massive lab. People in white coats applauded as a machine lit up. A screen read "Neural integration online." A man stepped forward. He was tall, charismatic, dressed in sleek black. He spoke like a prophet. His face was familiar, though I couldn't name it at first. He spoke of ending pain, ending death, unlocking eternity through science. And the crowd cheered. But behind the applause, I saw them, dark shapes, whispering shadows. They weren't cheering, they were laughing.
He is not the beast, but he paves the way. He speaks of hope without holiness, of progress without presence. He leads many, not with fear, but with dreams.
I knew who it was. Elon Musk. Not the man exactly, but the idea, the symbol, the savior of modern man, the one who dared to reach Mars, to blend mind and machine, to build the new Eden with wires and thought. And yet, I saw the truth behind it all. A world where humans would no longer pray, because their answers came from... I stood frozen, not from fear, but from the weight of it all. The city of glass and silence still glowed behind me, but it was already beginning to fade, dissolving like smoke. My soul, however, remained anchored in what I had just seen. Not just the horror, not just the loss, but the lie beneath it all. The idea that we could ascend without surrender, that we could become like God without needing God. I turned toward Jesus, heart-trembling words stuck in my throat. His eyes met mine, and in them I saw both fire and mercy. His presence wasn't like anything on earth. It was more than peace. It was power, wrapped in gentleness. Justice, wrapped in love. He stepped closer. I felt it not just in the air, but in the marrow of my being. Something eternal was about to be spoken.
Clarisse, What you have seen is not for you alone. You are chosen to witness, so you could become a voice.
His words were simple, but they echoed through me like thunder across a still valley. I wanted to say something, anything, but my lips wouldn't move. He continued, his voice like a melody that bypassed my ears and struck directly at my spirit.
The world is asleep, lulled by noise and novelty. But I am awakening my messengers. Not the loudest, but the ones who will burn.
Dropped my gaze. Shame began to rise again like a fog from within. I thought about who I was. A girl who cared too much about likes, who wasted hours scrolling past truth, who mocked those who prayed too loud, cried too often, or lived too holy. I shook my head. I'm not qualified, I whispered. I'm barely brave. I don't have a platform. No one listens to me. He reached out gently, lifting my chin with his hand. The light in his eyes pierced through my doubts.
You are not returning as a victim. You are returning as a voice. I do not choose the impressive. I choose the surrendered.
And in that moment I knew it was never about talent, or eloquence, or power. It was about availability. It was about saying yes when everyone else stayed silent. I didn't have to be the smartest. I didn't have to be famous. I just had to be willing. Still, the fear hadn't left. I looked around, heaven behind me, earth below me, eternity pressing in on every side. What if they mock me, I asked. What if they call me crazy? What if no one believes? His expression changed, not cold but solemn, like a king preparing a soldier for war.
Some will laugh. Some will reject you. Some will turn away. But others, they will awaken. And even if it is just one soul, it will be worth it.
He placed his hand over mine. I felt it instantly. A current of life like lightning, but not destructive. It wasn't fire that burned. It was fire that healed. Something ancient, holy, divine, surging into every part of me that had gone numb from the world. My insecurities cracked. My distractions crumbled. My apathy caught flame.
The time is shorter than they know, but grace still flows like a river. Speak boldly. Speak fully. Speak what I showed you. Do not edit the warning. Do not dilute the truth. Shout of judgment, yes, but also of mercy. Tell them I am not coming for crowds. I am coming for a bride.
His words carved themselves into me. They weren't just instructions. They were identity. I wasn't just a survivor of death. I was now a carrier of life, not the easy kind, not the commercial kind, but the kind that costs you everything and gives you more than you ever imagined. The light around us brightened, not harsh but purposeful. It was time. I felt it. Something in me resisted. I didn't want to leave him. I didn't want to leave this place of clarity, of holy stillness, of unshakable love. But I understood now, this wasn't where my story ended. This was where it began. I looked one last time into his eyes. Will you stay with me? I asked, my voice breaking.
Always. Even when you feel alone, I will be closer than breath. Even when the world grows darker, you will carry my flame.
And then, without another word, he stepped back. The light surged. My spirit trembled. And just before everything faded, he whispered one final truth.
Now go, awaken the ones who still dream in chains. And just like that, the silence broke, and I was falling.
I thought I was falling, but I wasn't afraid. Not this time. The light didn't vanish. It shifted. It softened into something gentler, more welcoming, like sunrise through lace curtains, like a memory you didn't know your soul remembered. The wind around me carried music not made by instruments but by presence. Every note felt alive. Every note felt like worship. And then, I landed. Not with a crash, not with a thud. I simply stood on something solid, golden warm. Beneath my feet was a meadow. But it wasn't grass. Each blade shimmered like crystal, moving in harmony, as if the ground itself was breathing praise. The air was sweet, not sugary but holy. It tasted like peace. Like home. Ahead of me stretched a river, not of water but of light. It flowed like liquid glass, every ripple echoing a melody I didn't know but my spirit somehow sang along with. Trees lined the banks, bursting with fruit that glowed from within. Lions and lambs lay side by side, resting beneath their branches. Nothing here was afraid. Nothing here needed to prove itself. Jesus walked beside me, silent but near. His presence wasn't towering or commanding. It was gentle, like a friend who knew every mistake you'd made and loved you even more because of it.
Welcome to my kingdom. This is what waits for those who walk with me, not in perfection, but in surrender.
I looked up and what I saw stole my breath. A multitude, people beyond counting, dressed not in crowns, not in riches, but in robes of white glowing not with fame, but with faithfulness. Some danced, some wept with joy. Some knelt before the throne that rose at the center of the kingdom, high, holy, alive with fire. Not the fire of destruction, but of purity. And yet, there was no fear, only awe. I noticed something immediately. The ones shining the brightest weren't the ones I expected. They weren't celebrities, not megachurch pastors, not social media influencers. They were the forgotten, the overlooked. An old man with a bent back laughing with children. A woman missing one leg, her face radiant with joy. A young boy no one ever knew kneeling head bowed, his hands raised in silent surrender.
He never preached a sermon, but he forgave everyone who wronged him.
I saw a janitor, a housekeeper, a farmer, a single mother, a street preacher who had been ridiculed in life now shining like a star, and I understood.
The world measures influence. I measure obedience. They were small on earth, but great in my eyes.
We walked toward a gathering beneath a tree that sparkled with glory. A woman noticed me and ran forward. She embraced me like a sister I'd known forever, but I didn't know her. "Welcome home," she whispered. Her eyes were kind, her hands calloused. She smelled like prayer.
In heaven, you are not celebrated for what you built. You are celebrated for who you became in me.
Then the light shifted again. I found myself in another space, darker, colder. A building, a church. Huge, impressive, polished to perfection. The kind you see on billboards. Flashing LED walls, laser lights. A pulpit the size of a stage. The room was packed. The music was loud, catchy, emotional, rehearsed. The preacher spoke with confidence and clarity. But as he talked, I felt nothing. The people cheered. They clapped. They laughed at his jokes. But no one wept. No one knelt. No one trembled before God.
They replaced my altar with a platform. They replaced fire with fog machines. They made it comfortable, so no one would leave. But I was the first to walk out.
I saw behind the curtain, past the lights, down a hallway labeled staff only. Inside, idols, awards, contracts, screens displaying follower counts, endorsements, sponsorships. A golden trophy engraved with Most Watched Ministry 2025.
This is what they truly worship. Success, relevance, applause.
I felt sick. But Lord, I whispered, how did it come to this?
It happened the moment they stopped preaching repentance and started preaching comfort.
Then I saw something beautiful. A small house, dimly lit, tucked in the mountains, inside just a few people, kneeling, holding worn-out Bibles, praying with trembling voices and tear-streaked faces. No lights, no camera, just presence.
This is my church, where I am welcomed, not marketed.
Another scene. A handful of teenagers under a mango tree, singing softly, not for content, but for connection. No one was watching, except heaven.
They have no platform, but they carry my power. They have no followers, but they follow me.
Tears rolled down my face. I remembered all the times I mocked people like them. I remembered how I rolled my eyes at those who cried in worship. I thought Jesus was a brand, a lifestyle, a filter. But now, I knew. It didn't feel like waking up. It felt like falling into noise. The light was gone. The music, gone. The grass under my feet, gone. Instead, there was beeping. Sterile air, cold sheets. And pain. Not sharp, but heavy, like my body had forgotten how to hold my spirit. My chest burned. My head throbbed. My eyes fluttered open. The ceiling above me was white. Too white. Fluorescent, humming faintly. My ears picked up voices, rushed, broken, urgent. Her vitals just stabilized. No explanation, doctor. 23 minutes with no oxygen. And yet, she's back. I turned my head. Slowly. Everything ached. And then I saw her. My mother. She was slumped in a chair beside me, her nurse's uniform still damp from the rain. Her eyes were red. her hands shaking as they clutched a rosary so tight it had left marks in her palm. The moment our eyes met, she gasped, like she'd seen a ghost. She stood so fast the chair screeched behind her. "Clarisse," she whispered, her voice barely holding together. "Anik." And I couldn't speak. Not at first. My throat was dry. My lips cracked. But the moment I nodded, her knees gave out. She collapsed onto my bed, sobbing into my chest like she was releasing every scream she hadn't allowed herself to cry while they worked on me. Every prayer she whispered on that ambulance ride. Every bargaining word she offered up to God in the hospital corridor. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Not yet. I was too stunned. Because while she wept from relief, I wept inside for something else. I missed him. Not the light, not the angels, not the beauty. Him, his voice, his eyes. The weight of eternity wrapped in mercy. I felt like a girl who had stood in the arms of heaven, and then been sent back into a world that had forgotten how to breathe. The doctors came in, one by one. Some crossed themselves. Others stared at me like I was a miracle in a glass box. They used words like unexplainable recovery, oxygen deprivation, possible hallucination. But I knew. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't medical. It was divine. That night they moved me to a private room. My mom never left my side. She fed me rice porridge with trembling hands, humming old lullabies to keep herself from collapsing again. I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't want to speak, but because I didn't know how to explain. How do you tell the woman who gave you life that you just met the one who gave you eternity? The first person I spoke to wasn't a doctor. It was a janitor. An old man who came in during the night thinking I was asleep. He was humming a worship song in Tagalog, sa piling mo ako ay payapa. I opened my eyes and whispered, "Kuya, you know him too." He turned startled. His eyes welled with tears. He nodded, placed his mop aside, and sat at the foot of my bed. I told him not everything but enough. About Jesus. About the kingdom. About the silence behind the noise of the world. He didn't question me. He didn't scoff. He listened. Quietly. Reverently. And then he prayed. A simple prayer. No theatrics, just gratitude. And for the first time since returning, I cried. Not from fear, not from pain, but from the realization that the fire he placed inside me hadn't gone out. It was still there, burning, quiet but undeniable. The next day I asked for my journal. I started writing down everything, the city, the tower, the throne, the children, the remnant. Every word Jesus spoke to me. I wrote like my soul depended on it. Because it did. I couldn't let it fade. I couldn't let the world drown it out. But I didn't post right away. I didn't make a viral video. I didn't give a testimony in church. I waited. Because something inside me said, the time would come. And when it did, it would not be for performance. It would be for warfare. I returned home 3 days later. Our house was the same, but I wasn't. The television played the same shows. My phone buzzed with the same notifications, but every sound felt louder. Every scroll felt emptier. Every post, plastic. I deleted TikTok. I removed filters. I stopped chasing noise. Instead, I listened. And in the silence, he was still speaking. One night I walked to the rooftop of our building. I looked over Pasig City, the lights, the traffic, the life, and I whispered, "Lord, I'm ready." He didn't speak audibly, but in the depth of my soul I felt it.
Then shine, Anik. Even if the world laughs. Even if they turn away. Shine. Because I'm watching.
And from that moment on, I never looked back. I started asking God dangerous questions. The kind no one teaches you to ask in Sunday school. Why are so many of us asleep, Lord? Why do we go to church and still leave unchanged? Why do we know the lyrics, but not your voice? And always, he answered, not in thunder, not in visions, but in whispers. Whispers that carried more weight than the loudest applause.
Because they know my name, but they've forgotten my presence. They seek inspiration, not transformation. They want comfort, but not the cross.
Those words haunted me because I saw it everywhere. Churches that felt more like events. Sermons built for engagement. Messages polished for platforms. Leaders too afraid to offend and too distracted to weep. And all the while a generation was bleeding out in silence. I saw it in the girl who smiled at everyone but went home and carved scars into her skin. I saw it in the boy with perfect grades but hollow eyes, because no one ever told him he was loved without performance. I saw it in the ones who laughed the loudest, because silence reminded them of pain. We were dressed up in filters. We were fluent in sarcasm. But we were starving for something real. Not just another trend that promised to heal our energy or raise our vibration, but someone who could raise our soul from the dead. And his name is Jesus. But how will they know him if we never speak?
Clarisse, do not water down what I've shown you. Do not hide my fire behind soft words. Speak. Cry aloud. Call them out of darkness. You don't need a pulpit. You don't need permission. You just need me.
And so I did. I started small. A voice note to a friend who was depressed. A handwritten letter slipped into the locker of a girl who'd stopped showing up to class. A prayer whispered outside the principal's office for a teacher going through divorce. I wasn't preaching. I was planting little seeds, quiet flames, and slowly, things began to stir. A group of us started meeting in secret, not for rebellion, but for revival. We prayed under stairwells. We read scripture during lunch. We fasted. We cried. We laid hands on each other when no adult dared to believe God could move in kids. We weren't waiting for permission anymore. We were waiting for the fire. And it came, not with noise, not with hype, but with hunger. One girl threw away her vape and said she hadn't felt peace like this since her dad left. One guy deleted all his explicit music and said he could finally sleep without nightmares. One of our classmates who used to mock anything spiritual began to cry uncontrollably during worship. He said, "I don't even know why I'm crying, but I don't want to leave this moment." And we told him, "You're not crying because you're weak. You're crying because your soul finally met its maker." See,
when they see my presence burning in you, they will remember what home feels like, because every heart was made for me.
That's what revival really is. Not lights, not stages. It's teenagers weeping behind classrooms. It's fathers deleting pornography and kneeling by their children's beds. It's mothers who whisper prayers while doing laundry, knowing heaven is listening. Revival is not an event. It's a return. To the altar, to the word. To the one who's been knocking this whole time. And yes, the world will mock you. They'll call you dramatic. They'll say, "That's just emotionalism." They'll say, "You're too intense, too obsessed, too religious." But I'd rather be too intense than be spiritually dead in a culture that celebrates numbness. I'd rather be mocked for burning than applauded for blending in. So I say it again for anyone listening now who still feels unsure. This isn't hype. This is holy. This isn't fiction. This is fire. And it's spreading, not because of me, but because he's moving again. In living rooms, in bedrooms, in villages, in broken families, in silent classrooms. And he's calling out,
Who will rise? Who will burn? Who will speak when others stay silent?
if you're still here, maybe the answer is you. If you're still watching, then maybe this wasn't just a video for you. Maybe this was a wake-up call, a holy interruption, not just a story, but a mirror, a moment, a message whispered through the noise. I didn't come back from death to be inspirational. I came back to say this Jesus is real, eternity is real, and time is running out. We are the generation scrolling toward destruction, smiling, distracted, half awake. But God is still speaking, still calling, still reaching for hearts that are willing to burn again. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be a preacher. You just have to say yes. Because this isn't about performance. It's about presence. It's about choosing light in a world addicted to artificial fire. It's about remembering who you are and whose you are. If something inside you stirred while watching this, if your chest got tight, your eyes welled up, your soul whispered, "This is true," then don't scroll past it. Let this be your line in the sand. Let this be the day you said, "I won't be silent anymore. I won't be lukewarm anymore. I will rise." And if that's you, I want you to do 3 things right now. Subscribe to this channel, Pinoy Faith Stories. Not because we're building numbers, but because we're building a remnant. A family of burning ones across the Philippines and the nations. Leave a comment, even just one word awakened. Let others know you're here, that you heard, that you said yes. Like this video, not for the algorithm, but because every click is a declaration I choose the real. And lastly, Share this with someone who's drifting. A friend, a sibling, a son or daughter, a classmate, a parent. You never know, this might be the one thing that brings them home. We're not here to entertain. We're here to ignite. And if your heart is burning, then don't let the fire die. This is your moment. And we're standing with you. From soul to soul, from Filipino to Filipino, from child of God to child of God, let the silence be broken. Let the light rise. Let this generation awaken.